I'm Matt Reynolds, and this is my podcast.
I can do the job, but running the business is quite difficult. What a lot of tradesmen lack, and I was probably one of them, is business skills.
I don't mind making mistakes. You learn from your mistakes.
Information is all around you in the minds of people that work beside you.
Welcome back to the Trench Talk podcast. I'm Matt Reynolds, and for this episode, which we actually recorded over Skype from a portable building on a construction site, I spoke with Theo Venter, who, after becoming the only known man to survive a 22,000 volt electrical shock, is now a motivational speaker focusing on workplace safety. The idea of these discussions, for those of you joining us for the first time, is to go into the trenches of achievement and talk not with people who are orchestrating from some lofty perspective, but to those high performers who are actually in the trenches honing their craft. That has included guests from the world of business, sport and entertainment, all of whom are on the front lines doing amazing things. Theo was an electrical linesman who has worked in the high voltage business for over 23 years. After leaving his home country of South Africa, Theo and his family migrated to Australia, where his trade was in high demand. He commenced work as a contractor in Australia, working on a major electricity network, where he had a huge workplace accident while working on live power lines. In this interview, Theo talks candidly of his time in hospital, where he found himself waiting to die, and his desperate fight to survive both physically and mentally, which continued long after the event. Theo has delivered his talk called Just Another Day in many parts of the world to people ranging from company boards right through to field workers at toolbox meetings. This is a hard-hitting story with a very personal and very powerful safety message. To find out more about Theo and his current work, head to justanother-day.com. If you enjoy Trench Talk, head to xrm.com.au/podcast and opt in for the newsletter. We'll make sure you're notified when every episode of the show is released. A big thanks to Kobe, one of our Trench Talk listeners, for setting this one up. Enjoy my chat with Theo Venter. Theo, thanks for doing this.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning to you too. Now, this morning, where are you coming to us from? Because we're recording this over Skype. So for myself, I'm on a building site, believe it or not, inside a portable room at the minute. So that's my side. Where are you?
I'm coming to you from a little place in Perth, in my man cave. I'm sitting in my man cave with my pool table and my flags behind me and all my hats hanging on the ceiling. And it's in Perth, in the south side of Perth.
Perfect. Now, I'm in Melbourne, just so we've all the listeners have got the geographics worked out of what we're doing here. Now, for anyone that doesn't know you, first up, how do you describe what you're doing career-wise at the moment?
Well, I'm a really passionate public speaker. Never, ever used to be one. Obviously, everyone has got the absolute fear of standing in front of people and talking, and that has just become from an absolute fear to someone that can't stop doing it, loving what I do. And I go and inspire people as much as I can all over the world at the moment. So that is my passion, and that's what I'd like to do until the day they try to force me to stop talking to people.
So we're going to get to what inspired this change in career or shift in focus, maybe is a better way of putting it. But you're originally from South Africa?
Yes, hence the accent. Born and raised in South Africa. I think when I was about 6 or 7 years old, in those days when in South Africa, the only sports we had there was cricket and rugby. There was lots of other sports as well, but obviously when you're 7, 8, 9 years old, and you walk around with a rugby ball in your hand, you are pretty much one of the boys. And in those days, my mum decided she's going to take me to this competition where they do poems, and I had to go and stand in front of quite a large amount of people for quite a few years, reciting poems. So I didn't let any of my mates know I'm doing these poems, and actually that's where it all got set up. I think from an early stage in my career, doing something really uncomfortable out of my comfort zone, obviously hiding it from all my mates. And for quite a few years I got A+ and was the best poem reciter in the place in South Africa or in our school. So that's where it all came from. I also grown up then, and through my school, started working with my dad. My dad used to work for the Sparky electrician company, and he got me into a job there. And me and my dad became, I guess, best buddies. He was my idol, my hero, my golf buddy. I actually lived with him for about 5 years, just me and him. So we really created a fantastic relationship until the day I decided to come over to Australia.
So what age, you lived with your dad for the previous 5 years before you left. At what sort of age did you leave South Africa and why?
Yeah, I kind of, just after school, me and him started living together. Those days we were forced to go to the army. So I was in the army for about 12 months and came back and lived with my dad, just me and him, for quite a while until I started my own little family, and then moved out, and I had my 3 kids. Got an absolute gorgeous princess, little girl, and then the 2 boys. And when they were about, my little girl, my princess, was about 5, and my 2 boys, 9 and 10 years old. And then we decided to come over to Australia.
And what sort of drove that decision? Was it Was it career? Was it my sister actually married a South African, so I know that and I'm not sure if it's the case where the particular area that you're from, but was it a safety concern? Was it what sort of sparked that decision?
Well, funny enough, Matt, I didn't plan to come to Australia at all. I was really content with my job. I loved my place. I loved being with my family. Everything was just going absolutely perfectly fine. And I guess we can talk about these little things that I didn't know in those days. But for some reason, one of my mates, we were sitting one day in the office doing what we do in the afternoon, and then he took my resume without me knowing and sent it through to Australia for some reason. I think he did his as well, so he just did both of ours just as a joke.
Okay.
And 2 weeks I got called from a guy and said, look, you've got the job, do you want to come over to Australia? So that blew me away. What do you do? If you've been working for 10, 12 years for the same company, you do obviously start looking for something else and a new challenge in your life. You want to go do some more things. Sometimes you just think you need something different in your life, something more challenging. And that just came along.
Came along at the right time.
Yeah, I think it did.
The family was excited to move, were they? Was it hard to move them at that point because they were still fairly young at that stage? Yeah,
it is a big decision. It is for everyone. You've got all your life over there. Everything is over there, and just the thought of selling everything and start a whole new life in a new country that you got no idea of. Plus, you got your family, like your dad, my dad. I mean, me and him were so close, and for me to kind of abandon my dad and leave was a big decision. And then we just decided, look, it's going to be, like you say earlier, there was a little bit of a concern safety-wise. And then, we decided to get on a plane and come over. Exciting times. So
you landed did you move straight to Perth?
Yeah, I did. The position that was offered was in Perth. So, these guys, they started a new company over here with quite a lot of people starting off. So I was one of the first coming in, which was quite an exciting time for me. I had to leave the wife and the kids over on that side in South Africa for about 3 months before I had them come over, because I had to obviously kind of set up your little place, make sure everything is fine, close to a school for the kids, and make sure everything is fine and dandy. And then you bring them over into this new place.
And your role at that time, the company you started with, what was that?
So I was working as a linesman. I'm a lineman working on the overhead power lines. And just before I came over, a couple of years before I came over, I went for a course on the lineman side, electrician side, which I could go and work as a live line person. So you get trained to go work on these overhead power lines while they're still alive. And that was quite a big thing. In those days we worked from pedestal mounted ladders, from utes, and you go up on this ladder, and you got all these gloves and sleeves and everything, protective equipment on, and you go onto these lines and you physically touch 11,000 volt lines and 22,000 volt lines and work on them while they're alive. And I think that's the reason why they got me over, because it was such a specialized trade that there wasn't a lot of people over here that was doing it. So that's where I came over and did, the live line side of it.
Now, there was obviously a fairly significant incident that happened, and I read that you're the only person to survive a 22,000 volt electrical shock. First of all, is that true? And then I want to ask about, obviously, that incident.
Yeah, that's not really you don't want to keep that as a claim to fame. It's absolutely horrible. So one day a guy said to me, "Is that your claim to fame? You survived the 22,000. You're the only person that survived." Look, there's a lot of people out there that has gone through similar experiences. They so far, I don't know of anyone that was exposed to a 22,000 volt line from the one arm straight through the heart to the other one. There was an amount which the electrical engineers came out with of about 1,200 amps that rushed through me that day, which is, if you're a sparky and you know your amperages and your voltages, I think something like 30 milliamps can kill you. 1 amp is most probably going to stop your heart, and when you get to 20 amps, you can kill 2 or 3 people. If you go up to 1,200 amps, you're not allowed to survive. There's no one that should survive that kind of thing. So every day I wake up, I've got a big smile on my face, and I wake up jumping, going, "I've got another day."
So your website, justanotherday.com.au.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Out of this incident, you you clearly got through it in the end, but that has inspired you to do a lot of work in the trade sector with a real focus on safety and the like. So just another day, can you talk through maybe how this incident occurred, maybe from the morning that you set out, which I guess the name of the website and I suppose your talk and that comes from Just Another Day. You thought it was going to be Just Another Day, right? But it wasn't.
Exactly right, Matt. I actually my family was just settled in. They came in November, and we just kind of felt the place out, and made sure everything is fine. And we haven't been even quite on our feet yet. When I went on that Monday morning, we had our first camping trip. We love camping. We love getting out there in the wild. And we had our first camping trip organized for just on that next Friday. So I remember Monday morning, my little princess, she's, that once she walks into a room, and have you seen when a little girl walks into a room and she smiles and the whole room just lights up? So he was jumping on my bed that morning, and I'll never forget saying, "Dad, let's go camping. And I said, yeah, it's 4:00 in the morning, please." It's another week of this. And I thought, this is going to be a tough week coming. But anyway, so it kind of, going to work that morning with a big smile on your face. February in Perth is beautiful weather every day. It's clear blue skies and it's nice and warm. And you got the music cranking up and getting to work, and they changed our job for the day, send us to this big power pole that we had to go and fix lifeline. And kind of busy with the work. And as we were setting up and getting up there on the lines, my mate kind of struggling with one of the 12 mil nuts. And I just said to him, "Mate, look, let me have a go at it." So I went ahead and tried to get this nut off, and I just couldn't. It was just very tough to get it off. And I decided on my own that day to remove my gloves off in order to get this nut off. Standing between 2 sides of a normally open bolt-up switch, which was alive, and taking your gloves off. At that stage, I didn't even think, you kind of think at that stage that you're 6 foot tall and bulletproof, and you've been doing this for so many years. And, you hesitate for a second. You go, I wonder if I should, and then you think you're so desensitized to what's going on around you that you just take it off. And I took the gloves off, and the next moment I just felt this absolute enormous heart-wrenching electricity shooting straight through from my left arm, straight down into earth, and breached this 22,000 volt line straight through my heart.
So the normal protocol, now I'm not too familiar with a linesman's job in the fashion that you were working, but I'm assuming that it's against protocol to take off those gloves. Would that be right?
Oh, absolutely. There's look, it is one of the safest industries in the world. If you, like anything else, if you do follow your protocols and your procedures. So if you are at a stage where you are so desensitized that you go against every grain of your body saying why are you doing it, and then obviously it is not the right thing to do. And there's these voices screaming in your head at one stage when I took them off, saying, don't do it. And I just thought, well, it's just a 12mm nut, I'm just going to take the nut off. It's a quick shortcut. And took it off. And then, got exposed to a hell of a lot of electricity.
So that nut that you were trying to get off, is that something you've removed before? And the reason I asked the question is, had you taken that shortcut before, or was that's just the first time that you'd done it?
Oh, Matt, I like it when you dig into those little questions.
Because and the reason I asked, right, I'm a tradesman, a plumber for a long time now, and we've all been in this position, right, where we've grabbed a grinder and maybe cut off a bit of Rio without putting the earmuffs or safety glasses on, or I think that we've all been in the car and we've probably sped up a little bit more than what the speed limit suggests that you should be going to overtake a car. And before this interview, I started thinking about this, and I'm like, we probably do this a lot of times during the day and don't even realise it, that we're doing all of these little things. So was it just that it was live that day? Had you done it before? I'm interested in why you made that decision.
Such a good question. Thanks for asking. Because funny enough, the week before my accident or my incident, we were working. It was actually a Wednesday morning, and we were working in the city, not too far from that spot actually, where we were working. I was at the bottom digging holes with shovels, and we had a crew on top in a cherry picker or EWP, a platform, working up on the pole, and those guys were working on live lines. And as I was working through the morning, I was looking up at one stage and looking at the guys working, and I saw this guy up there working without his gloves, and he took his gloves off. And I was standing back, and there was about 9 guys around us, and I screamed at this guy. I said to him, mate, come down, you made a mistake. In my mind, I thought he maybe just forgot to put his gloves on.
Oh, wow.
This guy turned around and looked at me from the top there, and he looked down at me, and he said 2 things to me that morning. He said, I'll never forget this. He said, Theo, he said, never ever tell anyone about us, of what you just seen. And in the second place, don't ever do it yourself. And he had a big smile on his face, turning around, finishing his job, putting his black gloves back on, and turned away and did it. And there was 9 people standing around looking at me like I just got bullied. You know what I mean? It's
yes.
Just like, what are you going to do about it? And a couple of days later, we were sitting in a safety meeting, and then the managing director came in that morning, and he said to us, guys, listen, everyone has gone. It's just our guys in the room. Let's talk about some of the safety things that happens out there. Is there anyone that wants to bring something up? Is there any safety issues you guys need to raise? Can we help you in any way? And I think there was about 9 guys staring right in the back of my head that day, waiting for me to get up and say something. And you know what I did?
You didn't say anything.
I did not. It was one of those things where I don't know why I wanted to, but I just didn't, and I just left it. And I walked away that day thinking, wow, I should have. I wish I did, but I didn't. That was Friday morning. Monday morning, I get to this bolt-up switch which I was working on, and standing in front of this 12mm nut, thinking, well, I saw someone doing it, and I've never done it before, to answer your question. But if you can get away, have you ever seen someone take quite a good shortcut and you think, wow, that's a good one, I'm going to try that?
Yeah, I have. Yeah,
That's
I understand exactly what you're saying. Like, it's the "she'll be right" attitude, right? Or just get it done, or whatever.
Yep.
Whatever. I understand perfectly what you're talking about. And I think most people that to work, well, in any type of work, really, have probably felt that pressure to get things done quickly, efficiently, and all that sort of stuff, and taking shortcuts that they shouldn't.
exactly right. And at that stage, you don't, like I said earlier, you get so desensitized on and you can see how you can get away with some things. And if you've got a 4-hour job ahead of you and you need to finish this job, and there's all kinds of pressures around you. Look, there's a lot of, in any industry, doesn't matter where you are, there's a lot of pressure of finishing your work and getting the job done. It's just, where do you draw the line? Where do you stop? Where do you go back and go look at your risk assessments and see? But sometimes you just feel like you got to finish this job, and you take that little 12mm nut, which is so insignificant. It's just a little nut. And I guess that's where you kind of get caught out.
So you see in movies and cartoons and that sort of thing, when people get shocked electrically, they can be thrown from the situation or the live lines. So after you've the electricity's passed through you, is that what happened to you?
Yes. So there's a couple of different scenarios. You can be exposed to and whether in an electrical explosion where it ionizes the air and it'll burn your skin and it'll burn you from the outside. Your face and your skin and everything will be burnt.
Yep. So that would be when there's a flash. Is that right?
Yeah, flash. It's a big flash, and you get an extremely hot flash. But that is from the outside in. When I got hooked up, and when you do get hooked up, it actually burns you from the inside out. So
I've heard about this. Yeah.
It actually creates, I think they're saying, quote me on this, but 1,000 degrees Celsius every half a second or so, and then it actually boils your blood from the inside, and you get pulled in, so you don't get blown away, and your muscles pulls in, and you're hooked up basically.
Because the electricity causes your muscles to tighten, and in your case, you've got your hands on it, so your fingers close, and then you grab on, which makes the situation worse. Is that right?
It's exactly right. That's what happened. My left arm was hooked on and closed the muscles, and the muscles pulls in so hard that it is incredibly painful. It almost feels like it's going to snap your bones. That's that hard. It pulls everything from your head to toes. And lucky I had my right wrist was on that steel crossarm, which closed my arm, my right hand, without holding on to anything. And I was hooked on for 2.5 seconds, which in electrical terms is it's an eternity. And then about 2.5 seconds in, I lost consciousness, and my knees gave in, and I kind of slipped my right hand off and broke contact, and then dropped straight back into the bucket. And that's how I got off. And then they took us down. Obviously, everyone thought I was dead because I was just lying there with a lot of smoke coming out of me because of the intense heat that was burned from the inside out.
Oh my goodness!
And yeah.
So they brought you down in the bucket, and then did they? I guess they called the ambulance. Did you have to be lifted in and taken to hospital? Is that how it played out from there?
Yeah, they obviously called the ambulance straight away. The ambulance arrived on site about 20 minutes, so it was quite a way out of the city. Those guys came in, picked me up straight back to hospital, and at that stage, it was pretty tough because they obviously, everyone knows that once you get exposed to that kind of electricity, you don't make it. So they immediately called my family and asked them to come to hospital straight away. And I was put in this isolated room where they put all these tubes into your system, and you look at all these people, and you so much pain inside of you, and they try to put these antibiotics and painkillers through your system, and then they all just leave the room, and then you're lying there alone in that place, and you look at, you realize that that's your deathbed. That's this because of such a small little shortcut, just the smallest little insignificant thing. I'm dying. I'm lying in my dying bed.
So were you unconscious at all, or do you remember the whole thing?
I remember every single millisecond of being hooked up. I remember thinking everything was flashing past me and my kids and what's going to happen, and it just felt like so long. Obviously, when I did lose consciousness the first time I woke up again, it kind of came back to me a little bit, and then all the way to hospital and all the way through hospital, I was conscious. I was never passed out or gone unconscious for after that. So I can remember everything, yeah.
So you've been shocked, and then you remember that happening and being in the bucket, seemingly unconscious, but you were consciously with what was happening at that time.
Absolutely.
Oh, wow. I didn't. For some reason, I thought it might have been you would have gone unconscious when the incident initially occurred, and then woke up sometime later in hospital. But you lived through that entire process. That must have been. Tell me, how was it? I can only imagine it being excruciating to worry and wonder and try and process.
That 2.5 seconds lives through my mind. For years and years and years, I wake up at night screaming, going through that 2.5 seconds, and the amount of things that goes through your mind in 2.5 seconds is absolutely amazing, because you just, it's so hypersensitive that you just think so many things at that stage, and there's just everything rushes past you. It's like time standing still, and the excruciating pain is you can't explain pain like that to anyone. It is absolutely something that I would not wish anyone upon, not my worst enemy. It was life-changing.
Was the pain through your entire body?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely. Through the entire body while I was hooked on. And then after that, my insides, my soft organs, the heart, kidneys, lungs, liver, all the soft, and obviously the arms, it was just insanely painful. It was just, it was something I've never experienced before.
So once you came to the assumption that you were, and you said to ask the hard questions, so I'll try and ask this the right way, but you were lying there, you've realised that you're on your deathbed, as you said. I'm not quite sure I'm going to ask this the right way, but did you have any regrets about your life prior to that incident that stuck with you afterwards?
Yeah, that's another great question. I think lying there, my brain and my mind was consumed with so many thoughts and how I got there and what happened and what's going to happen in the future, and with me not being there and the regrets. I actually went through that first night just not obviously. I don't know if it sounds stupid, but I didn't want to sleep dying. I wanted to see death coming somehow.
So you didn't want to go to sleep. That's interesting.
No. I wanted to be awake when, it's almost like it felt like someone, because I knew it was going to. There's a couple of my mates back in South Africa that was exposed to half of what I was, and I saw the pain and suffering they had, and I know you don't last more than a day or two, because infection sets in and it goes through your organs, and obviously you will pass away. And I knew with that coming that it's going to happen sometime soon. So there wasn't any regrets that I could think of at that stage. The only thing that consumed my mind was in the first place, why did I do it? What was I thinking? And then in the second place is my two boys and my girl and my family is going to grow up without me, and that just, it was so heartbreaking. It was really, really tough.
Did it take you a long time to accept what had happened? Because I'm hearing that you were sort of questioning why you did it and all those sort of things at the time. Was there then a lag between that point and you're saying, okay, it's happened, and then really being able to move on from that? Because I'm imagining that could be, from a mental point of view, a rut that could be very easily, it'd be very easy to get stuck in.
Yeah, absolutely. Look, the hardship I put my family and a lot of other families through from that point on for the next 5 years was incredible. Not only did I go, like you're saying, through mental illness, really, really bad, severe depressions, all those kind of things, and then seeing, when you see your loved ones and your family and your closest people around you suffer because of something that you did wrong, some decisions that you've made. That haunted me every single day for years, a lot of years, because for me to suffer is fine, for me to not to have pain every single day or not being provided for, that's fine, because I made the decision and I'll accept it. But if you see someone else and your closest relatives and your family suffer because of something that you did, that is the one thing that breaks you down every single day. And I remember crying in the showers and crying in places when I was alone, because this they call it that black dog. The black dog just it absolutely didn't let go. And that was the hardest thing, to see my family suffer, and I couldn't do anything about it.
So from today, how long ago did this happen? I'm just trying to get the timeline in my...
This was 2006, so it's 12 years, maybe 12 years ago now.
Okay, and there was a good 5 years in there that you said that you dealt with, depression, as you said.
Oh, yes. Look, the day I was released from hospital, I went through 17 surgeries in the first 34 days.
Oh, jeez.
And then it was the first 7 surgeries was to try and save my life and to try and see what they could do with my arms. My arms really, really bad, both the arms. And then the next 10 surgeries in the next 20 days was to do a bit of reconstruction and to see if they can actually save my arms to the point where, And then I was in hospital for about 4 months. And the day I left there, if you lie in bed for 4 months, there's absolutely nothing left of you. Nothing. I was in the 60s kilograms. I was a big boy before, I was a strong triathlon running man, proud man. And when the day I went back to my house and I sat in that dark room and you kind of realized that the constant pain and fatigue finally took that last little bit of dignity out of me after 3-4 months of sitting in a dark room. And obviously then, you realize that there's nothing left of you. You can't do anything in life anymore, and you're a burden to everyone else. And that's where you get those horrible thoughts of, if you could just die, then it would do everyone else a favor. It's not about me dying. It's about giving back to my family. They don't want to sit with an incompetent dad all their life. I just thought maybe the best thing to do is just die and get some money to them, which I was worthless anyway. So I could get a bit of money to them if I die, and then they could go back and have a normal life again.
So you had those thoughts. Geez, that's and especially in the condition that you were, depleted physically and mentally, to be able to, to have to process that stuff must have been, it must have been hard. I can only imagine.
Yeah, it wasn't. After 4 months of sitting alone in a place where everyone has to feed you with a spoon or give you water from a straw, you're drinking 17 tablets in the morning, 25 in the afternoon. It becomes natural, Matt. It makes so much sense. It's clear in your mind that you won't be functioning ever in your life again. My hands did not move. I did not have any movement in either of my hands, and I couldn't get up. You have to help getting washed and showered and all those things. So it just made so much sense to me that I'm so worthless anyway. That I just need to go. I knew I was convinced. I just need to die. It's just how it is. It's how life is, and unfortunately, that's how I'm going to end mine, by giving my family a little bit of money and let them put me in the ground and kind of go move on from there.
So at what point did that start to turn around? Because you're clearly not in that mindset anymore with the way that you talk now and the work that you do. So when did it start to turn around and you believed in yourself that you once again had a chance to, be a valuable dad and husband and family member and all that sort of stuff? Was there a point you remember that happened?
I think there was quite a few different points that led up to it. I didn't think I was worth asking for help at one stage. And then there's this story where I counted the 5 bravest seconds in the whole world. I've never been that brave. I counted those seconds, and I walked out of my dark room one day, and I wanted to go and do something for myself, which worked out quite fine for me. And then I started going to physiotherapy for 2 years. But for 2 years, my arms didn't work. I went through 25 surgeries in total after hospital as well, and still nothing worked. And then one day I was about 2 weeks short of 2 years. I was sitting in physio, and they had me from day one. I thought it was a bit of a sick joke, because they had from day one, there's a bucket after physio. They had me put my hands that didn't work at all. No feeling, no movement. They had my hand put in a bucket of bolts and nuts, and there was like 12 millimeter nuts in this bucket. I thought it was a sick joke, but anyway.
Yeah.
they had me put my hand in that bucket and trying to get the 12 mil nut out, and I couldn't. It didn't work. And then 2 weeks short of 2 years after, I put my hand in, and I actually grabbed a 12 millimeter nut for the first time, and I took it out, and it was pure joy. Absolute pure joy. It took me my second attempt taking a nut out took about 4 or 5 minutes to train my brain to pull my muscles back in, and the little finger, but I did it again, and that was one of the other moments that I did. And then I think my big moment was on the day 2 years after my accident. I could take my 3 kids and walk them to the park, and then sat there in a park one day in 2 years on the day, and I sat there and looking at my kids running around, and I think I've never appreciated life as much as I did that second, because the night I was going to die, that's the only dream I had. It's just to see my everyone happy again. And 2 years after, I could sit there and actually watch them and sit on the park bench, crying my eyes out. The kids asking me what's wrong, and they just running around, smiling, big smiles on their faces. And that was the start of me coming back.
So I'm assuming there's a number of things that you really appreciate now, that being one of them, that you probably took for granted before the incident. Is there anything else that stands out as something you really appreciate now, even just something really simple?
It's not one big thing, Matt. It is so many different little things. Sometimes I just sit there sometimes, and I look at my sons, which is grown up now. My oldest son just bought a house, and I was sitting in his brand new house that he built the other day, and I was looking at it with utter appreciation of where they went and how they turned out. Or there's a lot of small things, little things that you should sit down and really appreciate every day, and that is the thing that gets me. I really sometimes it just feels this big joy of appreciation, looking at the simplest little thing, and people look at me like I'm like I lost it. But there's a lot of things that I sit down and look at every day.
And physically, your injuries specifically, it was mainly both of your hands in addition to internal stuff, is that right?
Mainly the hands, yes. So it took quite a few years for my right hand. I think it's about 80% working at the moment. And obviously my left arm, the arm is still there. They call it a paddle. So it is. They bent it into a hooking position. I've got no thumb or forefinger, but the other 3 fingers are curled over, and they kind of, at least, when I go to the shops, I can hook a bag on it and walk back home.
Yep.
It serves some purpose. Or or try and hit the golf club with it, sometimes.
Now, I wanted to ask you about golf because we were talking about that just before we started. But the reason that we got in touch was because one of the listeners of this show, Kobe, was at a talk that you gave, and actually he's contacted me a couple of times actually, which has been great. But recommended that we get in touch and have a chat. Obviously, your views about safety, I would say, are quite a bit different now to what they were back then. So what do you advise, or if you're talking to tradesmen, if you like, in a toolbox meeting or something like that, which I know you do a little bit of, what do you now tell them about safety and how they go about their days?
Well, it's pretty clear. Look, safety in the past, in the last 10 years, have come a really long way. Where in the past it was just a straight show the finger, tick and flick little thing which everyone needed to comply by. Safety these days are really behaviour-like, and it's about your behaviour and your attitude towards it every single day, and that's what it's like. And when I mentioned sitting in that park looking at my kids running around, and you appreciate life so very much. And this is the one message that I'm hoping everyone would out there would think about. And it's a little bit of food for thought. But if you find that thing that makes you the happiest person in the whole world, and you find that one thing that you can really sit down and appreciate, if it's cars or wife or kids or golf or sport or whatever makes you the happiest person in the entire wide world, then only you will know why you need to be safe at work every day. Because you take that with you. Take a picture of that, stick it on your wall, and look at it every time you think you're gonna be unsafe or make a shortcut. And that just turns your behavior over from someone that just needs to fix something and succumb to pressure, to someone that's passionate about their life. They want to go do what they love doing every day, and then that becomes your pride. And that's why you want to be safe.
That's actually a really interesting way of looking at it, to focus on what you could lose as a reason to be safe, rather than just being safe because you're told to do so, I suppose, in many circumstances.
There can be every single morning of your safety talks, there could be 10, 15 people coming from all over the world telling you how to be safe and what you need to do and what you need to do. But if it doesn't come from your inside, if it's not personal, you'll never get it. It needs to come from yourself, from the inside out. You need to know what you're going to lose.
Have you gone back to working as a linesman since then or not, or since the incident?
I actually did.
Oh, wow.
My first 2 years after my accident, it was all about rehabilitation. And then my company actually got me back in, and I was the happiest day of my life to get back to work again, because I was really I was in workers' comp, and workers' comp doesn't pay a lot, so I wasn't in a good place either mentally or physically or even financially. So when they got me back in, I actually said, look, I'd love to go back and work again, but with my hands not working, I couldn't fit my hands in gloves. They gave me a job back, which was amazing. I got back, I started 2 hours a week and then 3 hours a week, and then just started doing admin work, and then progressed to the safety office and started working there. And I worked for them for about 3 years, and I ended up, I think I was the safety coordinator for WA, for Western Australia, for this company in my last month or two. So I could type with my one arm faster than most of the other guys could do with two. So I was pretty proud of myself.
Yeah, I bet. How do you play golf? If you can't wear a glove, how do you play golf?
Well, I did play golf just before my accident. I was never any good. I think I was a 24, 25 handicap, which I'm still today. But I had to go and teach myself how to play golf again, because it was pretty hard. I must say, going back, my first game of golf that I played was not to go and play golf. I called one of my buddies, and I was in a bad spot that day, and with all the mental illness, and I begged him to just take me out and let's go and play golf. So that was my escape. It was my freedom. It was, it was just get out and forget about all the bad stuff in the world and just get out in fresh air and go play some golf. I think I got to the second or third hole and I bled so much in my arms that I had to take me back to hospital. But then from then on in, I started getting into golf again as much as I could. And I actually played. I can't play with my left arm. Left arm doesn't work. So I hit a right-handed shot with my right arm only. And I did play. I played my first 9 a week ago. My first 9, I played a 39. And I think I played at 84 in total shots on 18 holes on a pretty hard golf course. So if you put your mind to it and you know where you want to be, it is an amazing game to go and play against yourself.
No, those numbers are very impressive. Do you actually? This might be a strange question, but I think you'll understand what I mean. Is it actually, with these restrictions now in situations like golf, is in some ways it easier to focus because I suppose you've only got you've got a limited way of doing things? Does that make sense?
Absolutely, and that really drills down into how much you're motivated and how much you want to do this. Because if you focus and when you put your mind to it, in the first place, do you know how good it feels to beat your mates on a golf game when you play one arm and they've got two arms? It's the best feeling in the world.
Yeah, I bet it is.
It is. And then you do absolutely focus so hard on everything that you do to still be better than everyone else. You don't always do it, and you get it. There's a lot of failures that you learn out of. But eventually, when you get that first day where you really everything comes together and you just do it perfectly, oh man, it is the most amazing feeling.
Yeah, I bet. Looking forward, you're doing a lot of your speaking and travelling around and that sort of thing. Is it your plan to continue to do that and spread this message that comes so authentically and strongly out of the incident that you had? Do you want to do more of that work?
Yes, absolutely. That's my. If I can sum it up, I've never been sensitive to any of these things in life where you I was brought up pretty hard and tough and not sensitive to most of these things that happened to me. But if you look at quite a few things that I was pushed into a direction where today I know I've got a purpose. It is my purpose to do this because, from a young age, 7 years old, I was taught to go and stand in front of people and speak to them. Never knew where this was going to go, and I couldn't understand at that stage, why do they make me these things if all my mates going to make a big joke out of me? And then, you get to a stage where this guy put my CV in and I ended up in Australia. And then it happens here, and then 2, 3, 5 years later, there was another guy that couldn't stop talking to me about. I didn't know this guy from a bar of soap, and he just kept on asking me if I could come and talk to some of his mates about my incident, and nobody's know about anything of what I did. 5 years on, I swept everything under the carpet, and no one knew about it. And this guy out of the blue came in and he said to me, "Look, just come and talk to my mates about it." And he forced me to write my story down on a piece of paper. So all these things lining up. And then I did my first presentation and then the second one, and it just exploded from there. And for 7 years, just kept on doing it, my passion. So I know that this is what I need to do. This is my purpose. And I will never stop doing it until the day they try to shut me up.
No, that's good. It's a very admirable thing to do, regardless of, I suppose, where you've come from. But where you have come from, coupled together, it's quite inspirational. And I imagine that you're welcomed. Well, I had a little bit of a look, through the list of companies that you've consulted for and spoken with and all that sort of stuff. And there's some really big players in there. So what a fantastic skill to have, to be able to go into these big organisations and really have an impact on the in this safety space. It's as you know better than anybody, it's so important, right? So now Are you a reader? Do you have any favourite books or documentaries that you recommend?
I'm not a big reader. I force myself to read sometimes, and when you read and you get to page 5 and you can't remember what you said and you have to go back to page 1. No, I'm just kidding. I'm not that bad.
I know what that is though.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not a good reader, but I'm actually reading a book at the moment, Power of Habits, which is one of the things that really interest me, and it's extremely powerful book, which I'm about halfway through, and I'm keep on reading it, and I go back 5 pages again, and I go ahead, but that plus I like the mind games and documentaries and all those kind of things. So I try to, you try to get yourself better and sharp, skilled, I guess, every day. So yeah.
If you could have one law changed, Theo, what would it be? A law changed or implemented, I should say.
Well, I strongly believe that they should make golf a free game. I strongly believe they should have everyone just go and play golf as many games as they want every single day without paying a cent. That is the one law change I would love to have seen coming.
You'd like to have that put in. Fair enough. I bet there's a lot of golfers out there that would appreciate that.
Yes.
Now, is there anything that you want to add, or that I've missed in your journey there that you want to add before we wrap it up?
I think listening to this podcast today is and you're sitting in your own place, and you know you've taken a couple of shortcuts in your life, and you shouldn't have done it, and every shortcut that you walk past is a standard that you are setting for everyone else. So it took me a lot of times. I had to take 5 very brave seconds to get out there and make brave decisions and to stop people from doing what they're doing. So sometimes you just got to count 5 seconds down and be very brave and do it. My dad always said to me, and this is what I always will end up with, is my dad always said to me, he said, a clever man will learn from his mistakes, but a wise man will learn from everyone else's mistakes. So hopefully everyone will learn from my mistake, get out there and let's have some safe workplaces out there.
What better way to wrap it up than that? Thanks, Theo. And I want to just mention again, thanks to Kobe, who I know that you know, because we spoke about him earlier, but for suggesting that I get in touch with you. I'll tell you what, this has really made me think about a few things, Theo. So I appreciate the time and the chat, and let you get back to whatever it is before you head off speaking and travelling again.
Appreciate it, Mac. Thanks for the call, and hope you enjoyed it.
I did. Cheers. Thanks, mate. Hey everybody, it's Matt again. Thanks for listening. Just a couple of things before you guys clock off. You can get all Trench Talk episodes at xrm.com.au/podcast. You can also sign up for other goodies at the same site. Just plonk your email in there and you are covered. That's X for X-ray, R for Romeo, M for Mike.com.au/podcast. If you really like what I'm bringing you, please head to iTunes, subscribe to this show and leave a review right there. And lastly, if you want to contact me directly, type the @ symbol followed by Mr. Matt Reynolds into your search bar and you'll find all the social links. Goodbye.